the moment, I'm doing an evaluation of how 12 and 13-year-olds react to a painting at the National Gallery. And the painting is a painting by Titian, and it's called Diana and Callisto. Some of you will know it, a very famous painting. To quote one of the young people, they said, "This painting is worth nearly as much as Ronaldo," right? The football player, right? And they said, "Do you think the frame is really made of gold?" You know, this was the questions. But they're sitting in front of this painting from nearly 500 years ago, and they're talking about the scene in the painting. For those of you who don't know the painting, it's quite a deep painting. But the painting is basically talking about bullying and teenage pregnancy and rape, right? So we've got 12 and 13-year-old children from two inner-city London schools where the children come from very diverse backgrounds and very deprived backgrounds. And they're sitting in front of the painting for the first time, and they've heard the story of the painting. So forgive me, I'm going to read the story. Girl. It's just like the EastEnders, a soap opera, right? So the EastEnders is a show on TV. A boy who hasn't spoken before. We exclude teenage mothers. We judge people even if it's not their fault. This is what this picture tells us. Another girl. I think the picture's about body image too. The painting could also be about not wanting to show your body to others because they might think that you're fat or anorexic or something. But I guess that now I think that painting could be a bit like a movie. Just all the action is in one picture. One of the boys. Yeah, maybe the paintings are a bit like comic strips. I didn't think of that before I looked at this painting. Now I think there are lots of things hidden in the painting. I didn't think about it, or I didn't really look before. An Asian girl. It's about the burqa. People dress up because they don't want others to judge them, and people are always judged. Another boy. The painting made me think about peer pressure and that long word we learned. What was that word? A girl. Marginalisation. A boy. I used to crack jokes and make fun of other people, like if they speak funny. Now, not to make... Sorry, it's just gone off. Now, not to make them feel bad. I didn't do it to make them feel bad. No, but just for fun. You know. But now I'll try and find out what they think before I make jokes. A girl. The painting shows how a pregnant mum is when she was at her lowest point. Teenagers get pregnant and they're not listened to. Another girl. That Diana was a right bully. She's just like the girls in our school. I changed when I learnt about this picture. Like you want to be a bit nicer to people. Perhaps you want to listen a bit more. Don't judge. You know what I mean? I think that shows emotional intelligence coming through an initial looking of a painting done a long time ago. What does it mean today? This is the presumption I've started with because I think we have to begin with this point. I get quite annoyed when I hear sometimes, and it's often in museum sectors, and I don't want to be critical of here, but they say, well, we're developing the audience of the future when we work with children. And it somehow assumes that a child is sort of in a chrysalis or a cocoon or a nest. And some point in the future, they're going to break out of that chrysalis and become a human being. We know, for example, that when babies are born, they cry in the accent of their mother. So Italian babies cry in Italian, Austrian babies cry in Austrian, Australian babies cry in Australian. So they already know stuff. They're already aware of culture even before they're born. So it's not about preparing a child for some point later in life. And that's the key thing. It's not about emotional intelligence so they can deal with things when they're 52. It's about emotional intelligence so they can deal with whatever now. And I think that's a key premise that I had to sort of lay down right from the outset, that the child already is in this space. They are already possessors of culture. They're already emotionally intelligent. Okay, Ashridge did a study, and that study was looking at young people of today. What are they better at than we are, and what are they worse at than we are? And I think there's some interesting things in this, because these are the things they're very good at. For example, they're better at doing things than knowing about things. So, for example, most technology that you buy now has not got an instruction book. Right? You buy a new phone, it has no instruction book. Because the assumption is, if it's a young person using it, they don't want to know about it, they don't want to read about it, they will learn how to use it by doing it. Okay? So they're more likely, so if you're about 40 or older, you want to read the book. Oh, I've got an iPhone, I don't know how it works. If you're under 40, you basically will go, well, I'll just play with it and then I'll work it out, and within about 5 minutes I've done it and I understand it. Okay? So they prefer to do the know. They also need immediacy. This is a key thing. They don't wait very long for anything because they've grown up in an environment where things have been delivered to them very quickly, very quickly. So they want information now, and they'll get very frustrated if you can't answer them as quickly as they want. So they want this immediacy. They learn by trial and error, right? And they learn very quickly by trial and error. And this is how a lot of computer games are based on trial and error. And then they converse or share amongst themselves the cheats in the games, so that there's trial and error and sharing, trial and error and sharing. And then they quickly get very good at things. So, for example, there's a young guy in my street, and this is a true story. He earns £150,000 a month, right? Because he developed an iPhone app, right? He did his first one when he was 12. He's now 16, right? He learnt it by trial and error and by online networking with other people developing apps. His key successful app is a very weird app in my mind, because it's a phone app that when somebody rings your doorbell at home, you see it on your phone, right? Now, my logic says if I'm home and they ring the doorbell, I can answer it. If I'm not home and they ring the doorbell, I don't care. But other people like his app and buy his app that tells you who's ringing your doorbell, right? So, but he learnt it by trial and error. He didn't learn it in school, he didn't learn it in college, he didn't learn it from his parents, he didn't learn it in university, he learnt it by trial and error. Children today have a very low boredom threshold, right? They get bored really easily. A lot of parents are nodding now. Yeah, we know what it's like in the May holiday. Oh, you know. So they bore really easily, okay? They like to multitask and they do what's known as parallel processing. Now, young people, when they have a screen open, you're young, you've got a screen open. Have you got 10 screens open? You're doing your emails, you're on Facebook, you're whatever, and you're listening to me. True? Okay, she's got 16, right? Right? You've got 16 windows open, right? That's how they operate. When I'm with my daughter, I've got 4 kids. When I'm with my daughter and she's looking for hotels, my eyes can't even focus at the speed she's decided which hotel we're going to. And she's looked through 40 hotels before I've even focused my eyes, right? So this parallel processing is happening, right? They're visual learners, they're non-linear. They don't start at the beginning and go to the end. In fact, they can't understand that. They say, well, why read the book when I can go straight to the bit I need? What's the point of knowing the rest of the book? That's not the bit I'm interested in. So they want to get straight to the point. Watch and listen to how they listen to their iPods, right? We used to, if you're as old as me, who remembers records? They're making a comeback. Sales of records have gone up. Right, you put the needle, for the rest of you, this is antique stuff, so you can just tune out for a minute, right? You took the needle and you put it on the first track, and even if you like track 3, you tended to listen to 1 and 2 until you finally got to 3 and, hey, that's all good. And then, you went to the end and then it went at the end. Okay, yeah? If you were really clever, you could go on to 3, if you really... right? But now, when they're listening on the iPod, first of all, what they would do would be just listen to the song they like, yeah? Now they listen to the part of the song they like. Then they mix together the parts of the songs that they like, so they don't have to even listen to the rest of the song that's not the good bit, right? You see? Yeah, they're all going, yeah, I know. The young ones, the old ones, So this going directly to the bit you want is really important. They learn collaboratively, okay? So we know the minute you take them outside of a classroom, they learn collaboratively, right? They learn by working with each other. And they use what's known in the educational jargon as constructivist learning, which means if you learn something, I don't have to learn it, you can just tell me the answer. And then I know it, and then I can tell you, and then you know it, and you can tell her. And then by the time it gets back to you, you've learnt something else, okay? Now you look through that list. How many of those things are we doing in a school? Or even in educational programs in a museum, right? They might get closer in the educational programs in a museum. Children were asked where they learnt best. 95% of children said they learnt the most when they were outside the classroom. But here's the scary figure. 92% of teachers said children learn the best when they're outside the classroom, right? So these young super children are not good at some things, right? And these are the things they're not good at, right? So the other things are the things they were good at. This is what they're not good at: budget and finance. Young people have the greatest level of debt now, not helped in England by the fact they have to take massive loans to go to university. So their level of debt is very high. Their understanding of finance is very bad, right? Their self-awareness is not very good, right? They're not very good. They often seem to be, people say, those teenagers are very bad-mannered. They just pushed onto the train or they knocked me over. It's just they're not very aware of themselves. They're not used to working with their bodies in relation to other people in that self-aware way. They lack self-criticism. They're not very good at reflecting about themselves. The emotional intelligences they don't have. Their risk assessment is very bad. They cannot judge risk, and they cannot think about risk and what they should do about the risk. Huge problem. Taking criticisms. They're the generation that said, everyone's painting has to be on the wall. Everyone's painting. Yes, I know he just scribbled and he didn't care, but hang on, we better put it on the wall, right? So they haven't been used to taking criticism. Actually, that painting's not very good. You know it's not good. You know you didn't care, right? But that comes very hard to them. Their written language is not good, whether it's English or German or whatever, right? They're very good orally, but their written language is not good. They lack deep-level thinking. And this makes them very vulnerable because they believe what they're told, right? Advertisers are delighted by that, right? Because it makes them very easy, right? They lack self-management because this is the generation where mum has put the lunch in the bag, dad has driven them to wherever. They can't manage themselves. So when they have to manage themselves, they often don't cope very well. And once again, those of you who have teenage children are going, yep, totally relate to that one. But once again, when we look at that list, we don't see curriculum, we don't see schools really saying, well, we have to look at those issues then. Let's make those the curriculum issues we really need to work on. So that's where we are with it, right? I thought I'd just read through these because I've done a lot of research with children, asking them quite a simple thing. What do you want school to be like? Right? And then I've grouped it into categories. So these are they want to feel good. They want to be happy. That's number one, right? So their emotional response to school is their key thing. They want to have a connection with their teacher. And they always say the very best teachers were the ones they felt a connection with, that there was some conversation with. They want to try and make meaning. Young people do have a lot of questions. And in what I started with, the little story to read to you, you could see the children struggling to make meaning and to connect it to their own experiences of life. Something quite strange, a really old painting based on an old myth, but they could see it had meaning. So they made that meaning. They want to communicate. Talk to me, they say. Talk with me, they say. And a lot of young people are not having a lot of adult communication. Very few children in England, I don't know if it's the same here, very few children sit at a table to have the evening meal. Simple things where they would have a chance to communicate, they don't have. They want to have their perceptions enlivened. They want to have lessons that make them feel alive, but they don't have them. I recently did a national evaluation in Norway, and I went into classrooms where children were asleep and the teachers weren't bothering to wake them up, right? Like they were genuinely asleep, not just like, they were actually asleep. Yeah? And they want to have what I call significant experiences. When I say to pupils, what do you remember from school? Number one is any excursion they went on. If they went on a trip that's number one. Number two is if they ever did a drama or a dance performance. Always, no matter where I am in the world, it's those same things. So they want those significant moments. They don't remember anything about what they learnt in the maths class or the science class, but they do remember those trips and they do remember those performances. And we have to remember a child is a child. How do they have time for childhood? Where does childhood fit into all of this? And this is a quote, "At present, much avoidable suffering and unhappiness is caused by the haphazard manner by which the selection of individuals is made." So in other words, some children are chosen and some children are not. What happens to those children who are not, for whatever reason? And we can't just in the arts say, well, that's what those bad people do who run exams. This is caused by the maths people. Because art people can do it too. When I'm going around the world, I'm going into classrooms and I'm going into schools, and sometimes they say, come and hear our beautiful choir. And the choir sings beautifully. And I say, when do the other children sing? Oh, right? Because it is lovely to have a choir, that's nice, but when do the other children sing? Yeah? This was written in 1933. Right? I think, to me, it is as suitable today as it was in 1933. I'll read it. The aim of the school should be to give a more abundant life, not to convert the child into a stuffed machine that lets out the appropriate package when the coin is inserted. Formal instruction there must be. A child must learn to read and write and carry out mathematical processes. But education is wider than this. Free physical activities, the rudiments of the arts, the child's use of the power of dramatisation, a fostering of curiosity through the study of nature, open-air education, all these have a part to play. I want you to go into your pocket or your purse or whatever, and I want you to take a handful of coins, but not show anybody. Okay, so take out a handful of coins and hold them in your hand, okay? If you haven't got coins in a minute, we'll get someone to share them with you. So take out a good old handful, because you might have to share them with someone, right? Just share, right, okay, cool. Has anyone not got any coins? You're arts educators, it's understandable if you haven't, No judgment made, yeah? Has everyone got some coins? Hold them in your hand like this, okay? Now don't show anybody, don't show anyone, okay? Just hold them there. You got some? Okay? Don't show anyone. Just have a little look yourself and know how much you've got, yeah? But don't show anybody. Okay? Yeah? Now what I want you to do, I'll use you as a demonstration model. I've got my coins, you've got your coins. We're going to close our eyes, we're going to hold hands, and we're going to mix our two coins up and shake them around. Then without looking, I'm going to try and take my coins back, and she's going to try and take her coins back. Okay, off you go. Now you notice the noise in the room, right? You notice the laughter, the conversation. What you've done there is connected with somebody, okay? If I'd have said, hold hands with the person next to you and start a conversation, you'd have all gone, oh, I don't know about that, This strange woman's come. But that's what you just freely did, okay? Now, the point of that is sometimes to unlock that emotional intelligence, you need to have something else that gives you a reason to do something, right? The coins acted like a dummy, right? Like a con, right? The coins were not important at all, right? What was important was your physical connection and the conversation that are even continuing, right? That's good, that's not bad, that's good, right? Now, I would argue art and culture often acts like the coins. Now, when I started with that story I read you, if I had said to a mixed gender, so boys and girls, 12 and 13-year-olds, let's sit together in a group and talk about rape and teenage pregnancy. You can imagine the sort of reaction I would have got. Certainly that reaction would have been very different from what I read to you, right? The artwork, Titian's painting, became like the coins, okay? It gave a link that enabled the child to have that conversation. A conversation they would never have in a normal school day. But we can see through that conversation they had important things to say. Really important things to say. 1, 2, 3. Green. Come on. Oh, well done. Give yourselves a clap. Okay, you can sit down. This is a quote from a child in the Norway study. "When I make art, I feel alive. It is so good. It is good to show what you can do. I feel like I have a lot to give. I can sing, and it is vital to me. I really wish I could give you the words for your report about just how important the arts are to me. But it's not just about English. I have the same problem in Norwegian. I really can't say what it means. The arts are beyond words. When I am on the stage, it comes out through my singing and through my dancing. Then you can see what I mean. But I really want you to capture that thing you can't describe in your report."